Hello, everybody. It's Lela, and this is my final. I'm going to move past the artist statement because I read it during my midterm and I'm trying to save time. So, my first project was a letter to nowhere, and it became a letter to nowhere or somewhere. And from that, I moved into kind of representing my father's generational trauma and abuse and kind of going through and increasing texture. It's the first time I'd really experimented with texture with oil pastels, and this was he was never told he was loved, he was never hugged. From there, I moved on to my father's pain. He had crippling back problems through his life, and it eventually wore his body down. Just kind of going through this quick. And so this is unimaginable and insurmountable. And I was really proud of this one. After this, I had initially had my representation of death, which was the blue hand. I really did not like that piece, and I have removed it from my final presentation and put it in my exploratory studies. So, project 4, loss. In this, I'm trying to kind of show the last elements of feeling of isolation, and I had initially thought of it being just a image of myself. But I realized that wasn't true, that I wasn't going through my grief alone, that I did have my small family and we were working through that grief together. And so that's what this became. It's definitely meant to look isolated, but still together. And so this is me continuing to play with texture. I play with it a lot this quarter. And so, yeah, this is Alone Together. From there, everything I've done up until this point for the last whole quarter and this one, I had been really focusing on the negative, and it was very getting easy for me to pull up those negative emotions. And I would really like to spend some time talking about positive. And I will admit that in all of the pieces that I'm doing that are more positive, like I am literally referencing my own childhood in a much more concrete way than I do the negative. And I think it was just because that was where I was really feeling it. So this one I had thought about doing more abstracted, but as I started working on it, I got really into the light and playing with the light and was really kind of excited to develop it. So I just titled this one Mom. Again, working from a reference, but I really don't want this to be about portraits of my family. Like, that's not what this is about at all. So while I wanted to show a representation of us, I didn't want it to be really straightforward. And so I spent some time thinking about it and decided like I wanted to emphasize playing with light and distorting them through light. And so the one on the right was technically done when I finished it, and I was like, this is not good. Also, my father's face is way too clear and kind of cartoony. So I took a cloth and I wiped away around them pretty aggressively and the background, and then went in with white and I distorted his face and I distorted the background. Again, really pushing true visual texture, like tactile texture. And I think it got somewhere, and I ended up really liking where this went. I think it's blurry and nebulous in a way I'm resonate with, and I think it allows other people to kind of come to it and not necessarily see this as a concrete portrait of other people, especially because you really can't see the faces that well. So this one is A Memory of Us. And then, so I've always really loved this photo. I'll fully admit this one was the only thing I had planned from the beginning, and I did kind of purposely put it off towards the end because it was like the most concrete thing I wanted to replicate, just because I think it's artistically beautiful. But this is my parents. It's 3 a.m. My mother is in labor with me. She's been in labor for well over a day, and she's about to have an emergency C-section. Um, and so I don't know. I think it's just really beautiful. And so I went through and I blocked things out and then distorted it. And I stared at the one on the right for a couple days, and I was like, it is not the same vibe as the photo, which I've always loved. And I realized it was too light. So I went in and I added a lot of black blended it out again, and it just really kind of separated the background as being light and then the foreground as being darker, and I liked it a lot better. So this is Labor. Project 8 is my mother's cancer. Fun fact, this is my aunt's hands, my mother's twin. My mother had like a cancer that caused her to itch for the last like 15 years of her life without relief. She said it felt like razor blades. And so this was me trying to kind of replicate that in a way that other people could still kind of come to it and see something from. I tried a lot of different color schemes. I was going to go with green because I wanted that for the grid. And I tried a flesh tone, didn't like it, ended up with red. And it actually was like a click. I'm like, yeah, that's really fits the tone of what I'm trying to convey. I don't love how that sits within the color story of it as a whole, but I think it was important for this piece. So this is She Had No Escape, No Relief. And then finally, I redid The Abstraction of Death. And as I thought about it, I don't know, kind of thought I didn't want it to be a sunset was an idea, but I really didn't want it to read literal. And so I went hunting for different examples. I found this, and I wish I'd gone a little bit closer to this. I changed it from here. But this is meant to be really surreal and out there. Very difficult to photograph, a mostly black piece. But I did my best. So this is Vast Horizons. So just reminders, this was my main idea and concept for it, and like that narrative of my parents' life and how it relates to me. And this was the final product. And I really wanted to get these up on a wall and photograph it displayed. I have frames for them. I'm just running out of time, especially because I redid the death piece, and that kind of ate the time that I would have reserved for trying to attempt to frame it. Although I also don't really have wall space in my house that would fit this big of a display. It's quite large. So for my research, really quick, I do not recommend the Creative Act, A Way of Being. It was a little too, I don't know, woo-woo in a way. Like, and I'm all for that, but it was not for me. I did really enjoy Art is Life by Jerry Saltz. It's not a perfect thing. It gets repetitive. It's pretty long, but I think there's a lot of times where I was like enjoying hearing about contemporary art in like a real context of now, talking about post-COVID, political things in regards to like current political climate. It was very much about, it's art criticism happening now. And that was really refreshing because I've taken art criticism and it kind of ends before modern times. He also has a chapter on Georgia O'Keeffe that I could have written myself, and it made me cry. It was so important to me and poignant. I also subscribe to New American Paintings. I highly recommend. I think I first bought one of their publications like 20 years ago, and I've just been finding them. I'm buying them whenever I can, and I recently subscribed when I started grad school, and so this newest edition came to me, and some favorite artists are here. I also need to kind of shout out like some technical research. I did a lot of technical work in regards to learning how to work with oil paints, and Misako Floden has a YouTube page. I watched her work over and over and over again. This Oil Pastel Essentials video, super important to me learning how to work with oil pastels in a way that was more advanced than what I had been doing. I just had to share, this is my collection. This is $500 worth of oil pastels. And I enjoyed spending a whole quarter focusing on it. I've always wondered what it would be like to really devote myself to it. And there are certain ways that I really love working with it, and certain ways I think I miss my paints, but I'm really excited to go forward and continue to keep it in my back pocket and make more with it. Anyway, thank you so much. Yeah, I'm tired.